Good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you to the April 6th regular meeting of the Napa LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission. We are 4 members now. Commissioner Cottrell is on her way. She will be here in a few minutes, but we thought for the sake of timeliness and that everybody is here that we would go ahead and get started, at least with the initial portion of our meeting. Because there are a few items that we can certainly get through, the first of which is roll call.
Commissioner Cottrell is currently absent. Commissioner Doring,
Here.
Commissioner Leary,
Here.
Vice Chair Ramos is absent today. Commissioner Painter, Chair Painter,
Here.
Commissioner Gallagher,
Here.
Commissioner Khan,
Here.
Commissioner Oro.
Here.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Gallagher is standing in for Vice Chair Ramos. Back to you, Chair Painter.
Okay, thank you. And also let the record reflect that while Commissioner Cottrell is not here yet, when she's here, we will go ahead and add that to our minutes. Next on the agenda, item 3 is disclosures. It's under what's called the Levine Act, under the Political Reform Act for those. Oh, the pledge. I skipped right over the Pledge of Allegiance, didn't I? I'm trying to just, buy time here. Commissioner Doring, would you lead us in the pledge?
Happy to do the slow version until Commissioner Cottrell. Place your hand over your heart and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that you keep me on track, and I try to not skip over things, but it happens on a regular basis. So now we're on to item 3 on the agenda. This is disclosures under the Political Reform Act, which is commonly referred to as the Levine Act. For those who are interested, it's fully described in your agenda, but I will start with Commissioner Gallagher. Do you have any disclosures?
No, I do not.
No.
And I have no disclosures, Commissioner Doring? Do we need disclosures from our alternates?
No, since they're not.
I didn't think so. So anyways, thank you. Next, we'll move to item 4, which is the approval of our agenda as prepared. Does anyone have any requests for either removal or rearrangements of any items on the agenda?
I'd like to pull on the consent items. That's
D and E. Okay, so that's under the informational only D and E, the LAFCO quarterly report,
yes.
and the digital access. Okay. Very good. So with that, otherwise, any other changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to item 5, which is public comment. We have a nice size audience today, so I appreciate that. This public comment period is for any members of the public who would like to speak to the commission on any matters that are not on today's agenda. The commission is prohibited from discussing or taking action on any of those items, but we certainly would like to hear from you if you have any public comment items. Not seeing anyone rush to the podium. Do we have anybody on the phone or by Zoom? No. Okay. Well, we are moving pretty quickly then. We will now move to item 6, which is our consent calendar. You'll see on the consent calendar that we have 2 action items and then 3 informational only items. We will be removing items D and E from the informational to discuss. Otherwise, I would look for a motion for the 2 action items.
I'll move approval of the action items under 6A and B.
Second.
Okay, thank you. That was moved by Commissioner Gallagher, second by Commissioner Leary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, well, that motion carries. Why don't we take the items that were removed from consent now so that we can discuss them or share information as accordingly. So the first would be item D, which is the LAFCO quarterly report.
Yes.
Commissioner Leary, did you want to go ahead and start, or do you have staff?
I'll go ahead and report. I didn't know for sure if the commissioners received an email regarding Cal LAFCO, and 4 of the county LAFCOs decided to create their own kind of association. And so I just wanted the committee to be aware of that. The association is called the Alliance Cal LAFCO. It includes Los Angeles, Orange, San Bernardino, and San Diego. And they are organized under a MOU. And they are asking $10,000 per Cal LAFCO to join the association. I just want to have the commission to be aware of that, because in our budget item, we will be, and doing, considering whether we will re-up to Cal LAFCO. So I thought that would be important information to know what's still going on with the Cal LAFCO.
Okay, that is interesting. Do any commissioners have questions or comment on that? We don't need a motion for approval because it was informational only. Is there any public comment on that item? Okay, thank you. And we will, I guess, talk about that during budget.
Yes.
Did you want to go ahead and, for Commissioner Cottrell's purpose and for the record, Commissioner Cottrell has joined us for the meeting. Thank you. We just started on our early items and consent calendar, and we're discussing now item 6E, which is the digital accessibility requirements.
Yes. Oh, yes. I pulled this because I thought it was important to highlight this in terms of what we're doing to make our information more accessible. And I thought it would be nice to highlight it and speak on it and what it means for our citizens to be able to access our information. So, Brendan?
Well, thank you, Commissioner Leary. Thank you, members of the commission. Good afternoon, everybody. This item is required of all local agencies, so it's not discretionary. We've got to do it. It's in the best interest of the general public to ensure that regardless of any disabilities that our public may have, that our content, all of the documents on our website and social media must be presented in a way that is accessible. And certainly staff is happy to add more information as we learn a little bit more about what this entails. But I have tasked your analyst, Stephanie Pratt, with being the project lead on this. And she's done an admirable job of ensuring that this moves forward at the appropriate timing. So I want to give her kudos.
Stephanie, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I'll add that. I'll step up here. I don't have a mic. I think you can hear me. So I was working with this company that also does our website. They're our host, and they were purchased by this company that I had been working with. So I put them off for a long time and finally negotiated what I think is a really good contract with them. And it's going into effect for our next fiscal year, but I was able to negotiate it for them to start immediately. So everything is already accessible. We're ahead of the game. And so if you have any questions about it, you can feel free to reach out to me because I know way more than I should.
Well, I'm sure you know just enough. And anyways, I just want to thank you. I'm sure the commission wants to thank you for your work. Any questions?
No?
Okay, thanks for allowing us some public.
Brendan, yeah.
Okay,
Just before I lose my chance, I do want to speak on one other consent item when appropriate. That would be 6C.
sure.
Is now good? Okay.
I think we're done with 6E, so go
Yes.
ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I do want to briefly daylight the active proposal on item 6C, current future proposals. Well, first I'll mention that I have trimmed that report to eliminate a lot of the lingering anticipated proposals that were truly not showing any movement. And who knows when those may come to fruition, if ever. So those have been dropped. We've minimized the report down to just one active proposal and two anticipated proposals that we know are actually moving forward at some point. The one active proposal is the Hess-Laird proposal, which involves concurrent sphere of influence amendments and annexations involving the City of American Canyon and the American Canyon Fire Protection District. This proposal covers two parcels totaling approximately 282 acres of unincorporated territory on the east side of American Canyon's city boundary. This proposal was submitted by landowners, not submitted by the City of American Canyon. There are some outstanding requirements that need to be met before this annexation proposal can come forward to the commission. However, we anticipate that those will be met and that the commission will hear this item for possible action as early as its June 1st regular meeting. And I had promised the city manager I would share this information at this meeting, which is the purpose of pulling the item.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions? Okay, seeing none? Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. I got a call from a representative for an applicant on a project where they are looking to include in St. Helena's sphere of influence their parcels. And so I think it went to the city of St. Helena. And to me, this is an item here, right? Hopefully, because it's a future proposal. So hopefully that can get added to this list, because I think it came to the city in March. And then I think there's also a teeing up for our next discussion about how we get information about those proposed items.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I think that based on my knowledge, and Brendan can certainly elaborate more, we had a very long list of some things that were really not going anywhere. And what is on the list generally are items that already have an application in. So it may be beneficial to keep it that way so that we're not putting things on the list that are potential applications, only because, until we get something filed, we just don't really know. But that does tee us in really nicely to go to item 7 on our agenda, unless.
Just a quick addition to that discussion. So Commissioner Cottrell asked a good question there is a specific answer to why we even have that item on the agenda in the first place, which is that it is required under state law that when we receive an application for annexation, and I'll look to council to correct me if I misspeak, but it's specific to changes of organization, I believe. So not spheres of influence. A sphere is not a change of organization. Annexation is a change of organization. If we receive a proposal for a change of organization, then we are required to provide it on the next agenda for information purposes. And we have gone above and beyond by adding more of a forecast. We've done our best to forecast what else may be out there, even if the proposal has not been received yet.
Okay.
So this is an area we can certainly develop over time and improve it.
Okay, very good. Well, I think we took a step in the right direction to at least minimize some of the items on the list. Any other questions? Well, now we'll move to our item 7, which are action items prior to our public hearing items. And we have only one item on the action agenda, and that is to look at our overview of the municipal service reviews and spheres of influence.
Excuse me,
Do we need to approve D&E on
Those were
consent?
informational only.
Informational only, so we don't need to, all right.
But thank you. So going back to item 7, this is a review of our MSR and SOI, and also consider establishing an ad hoc subcommittee. Brendan, would you like to take it from here?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission, and the general public who has joined us today. The PowerPoint won't have much detail, so I'll be delivering this verbally. If in the future I may work on more robust PowerPoints when we when our staff is ready for that. We have a new staff member who's doing an awesome job she has helped us bring PowerPoints back after a couple of years off. So already a step in the right direction. So this item is intended to do two things. First, to provide a clear and practical overview of municipal service reviews and spheres of influence, what they are and why they matter. Second, I want to discuss how the commission as a whole wants to approach this work going forward, which includes a recommendation from staff to establish a 2-member ad hoc subcommittee. Now, the big picture of what an MSR is and what an SOI or sphere of influence is, well, at a high level, the Municipal Service Review, or MSR, is a comprehensive evaluation of how local agencies provide services. Things like water, wastewater, police, fire protection, quite a bit more than that, but those are some of the essentials we typically look at. A sphere of influence, or an SOI, is the commission's determination of the probable future boundary and service area of an agency. So an agency being a city or a special district. Now, these two items are directly linked. The MSRs provide the analytical foundation, and the SOIs are the policy decisions that follow. State law requires that LAFCO update spheres of influence, and in doing so, we must rely on MSRs. That is the direct link, and this is where the concept of doing updates every 5 years also comes into play. Now, why does this work matter? Well, this work is not just procedural, it's foundational to what LAFCO does. MSRs help us answer some very important questions, such as, are agencies providing services efficiently and effectively? Do they have the capacity and financial ability to serve growth, as well as current populations? And are there opportunities for shared services or better coordination? Also, are we supporting orderly growth while protecting agricultural and open space lands and avoiding inefficient expansion patterns that could be seen as urban sprawl? This is one of the primary tools of the commission, and this is how the commission ensures services are delivered across Napa County in a way that actually makes sense, both today and into the future. That's our aim. So what is evaluated specifically in an MSR? Well, that is spelled out for us under state law in the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, or CKH. We are given specific factors that we must address in the MSR. So those factors include growth in population projections, the adequacy and capacity of infrastructure, financial ability of agencies to provide services, opportunities for shared facilities, and governance and accountability issues. And in Napa County, our commission has adopted additional policy areas that we evaluate in our MSRs. So we are required under our own policy to explore additional areas of interest, including matters related to agricultural preservation and land use policies, climate resilience and climate action, housing, including workforce housing, transportation systems, and broader cumulative service impacts. So these are not narrow technical documents. They are fairly comprehensive looks at how systems are functioning. And so in terms of purpose, MSRs serve multiple audiences for the commission. MSRs inform your decisions on boundaries, consolidations, or reorganizations. For local agencies, they provide a structured opportunity for self-assessment. And for the public, they increase transparency around how services are delivered and how resources are used. Now, in Napa County, this all applies to a total of 5 cities and 18 special districts under LAFCO's purview. And under state law, we are generally required to review and update spheres of influence every 5 years as necessary, which means MSRs follow a similar cycle. In practice, that creates an ongoing workload that requires prioritization, coordination, and clear direction from the commission. And how the process actually works in practice, very briefly, the MSR process follows a structured sequence that starts with defining the scope of the study and the schedule for it. How soon do we want to have a draft report ready to present after we've defined that initial scope? Then we go to the agencies being reviewed and collect data from them. Then we prepare a draft analysis in a report that is circulated first for administrative review to the agency or agencies being studied. Then only after the agency has had an opportunity to provide comments and possible edits, then do we incorporate those into a public draft report, which would be presented at a commission meeting. And we typically do not take action on a draft report. We typically circulate that draft report for public review and comment, and then bring it back for final action at a later meeting. So there are many opportunities for robust coordination between LAFCO, the agencies being studied, and the public as well. Now, ultimately, the factors that we must address under state law take the form of written statements in the report and in a resolution that is adopted by the commission. So those determinations, those would inform any future sphere of influence updates or amendments submitted by individual landowners. So this is a thorough process, but it is one that's designed to ensure accuracy, transparency, and good decision making. And right now we are actively engaged in multiple MSRs under our work program. That work program is attached to the staff report for this item with some comments on the status. Most notably, the Countywide Fire and Emergency Medical Services MSR and the City of St. Helena MSR are both nearing completion and will soon be circulated for agency review. There are some emerging questions, however, about scope, timing, and expectations. For example, recent requests submitted by the City of St. Helena and Napa County for expansions of scope or data timeframes. So what we are seeing is that these projects are becoming more complex, more policy sensitive, and more consequential in terms of how they shape future decisions. And that leads to the recommendation before you today, shown on the PowerPoint slide, which is to establish an ad hoc subcommittee and appoint 2 members of the commission who would work closely with staff and would ultimately return to the full commission. This subcommittee would not have any decision-making power, but rather advise staff to then return with recommendations for the full commission to consider. Ultimately, this would allow for the commission to be able to have a more detailed discussion on MSR scope and approach. Also, we would have better input on future work program priorities. Staff would have better guidance on consultant versus in-house work. At the moment, we are attempting to hire out our MSRs and find qualified consultants to do that work for us. Is that really working? I'd like to explore that. This also allows us to do more of an early vetting of strategic opportunities and provides a more thoughtful approach ultimately to the sphere of influence amendments and updates as those come through. So the goal here, it's really not to add another layer, but rather to improve efficiency and bring forward more refined recommendations and ultimately make better use of the full commission's time. And so this is one of those areas where a little more structure up front can save us a lot of time and improve outcomes down the road. So with that, the recommended action is to establish a 2-member subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee, which would not be subject to the Brown Act. And that subcommittee would advise staff on matters related to MSRs and spheres of influence. And there would be an update provided at the June meeting would be staff's intent. And so with all of that in mind, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. Appreciate that. Before we go to commissioner questions, I want to open this to public comment if any members of the public would like to comment on this action item. Seeing none, and I'm assuming no one on Zoom or phone calls, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Does anybody want to start?
Well, I'll start. Thank you, Brendan, for the report. To say that I'm a fan of MSRs, I guess is understatement. I believe MSRs are the primary work that we do to protect the public. And I'd like to serve on this subcommittee because I value MSRs and I value what they do to protect the public. You would hate to wake up one morning and your water is not flowing and you find out that the board has not been meeting for months and they were never budgeted or the money that was there is no longer there. So we do this to protect the public and to protect their interests. So thank you very much.
Okay.
That's it.
Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Cottrell. Oh, Commissioner Doran, we'll start at the end.
Well, thank you for the report and thank you for the chair for helping to initiate a little bit of public education. Honestly, in the last meeting, I was a little struck by some of the comments that were made that appeared to suggest there was a complete disconnect between the MSR and the SOI spheres of influence. And I knew from many years serving in a prior life on this LAFCO that that was not the case. And I felt a little bit, there was a little certitude and a little bit of a sense of condescension, frankly. You know, I came to this meeting feeling like, wow, what is going on here? Honestly, and I walked away from that meeting going, okay, we need to all be educated on what it is that we're doing here, work through the process in good faith. So I'm relieved to know that we have a good educational process, and just would point to the policy, to attachment number 2. First paragraph says, as part of the MSR process, LAFCOs review and update each agency's sphere of influence to align with evolving community needs. And I know that to be the fact, and I think that there are all kinds of examples of that, including 2 that were mentioned today. So I think going forward, I think it's important for us to really recognize how important the MSRs are, but how they're connected to the spheres of influence, and particularly in our case in St. Helena. And I'm not speaking for St. Helena. I know I don't represent St. Helena, but I just know we have a general plan that has study areas, and it's just a natural flow of the MSR to study those areas. And so I'm hoping that we'll all understand that, and I think we do. So thank you for that.
Good. Commissioner Cottrell.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that report. It's helpful, again, to understand that workflow and the relationship between MSRs and SOIs. And, a couple of comments, I think, from the last discussion, and I appreciate your input about that. I think one of the questions that I came away with was when does a request for a parcel to be included in an SOI need to come into the process? And I think, we've just heard what Commissioner Doring was saying. And I also think we can look back on history and see things happen in a few different ways. So I appreciate this report. To me, it's still a little bit abstract. And so I would love some more details and some more specific historical examples. So I'm actually not ready to move forward with an ad hoc today. I'd love to ask for more information from staff about some examples of how we've done things. We heard that we've got a request from the city of St. Helena about an inclusion in the SOI, and we also have a report about the county wanting to expand the scope of an MSR. And as you say, those add complexity, but I can't think that this is the first time we've had those types of requests. So what I'd like to ask of the commission is if we could have 5 years ago, how did we handle those? 10 years ago, how did we handle those? So I think that would be something interesting to learn as we continue the conversation about how things flow in. And I think another piece of that is really kind of a nuts and bolts budget one, right? When something is asked to be part of the SOI, if it's a private applicant, if it's an agency, if it's like the county, I understand the request was to make sure that we're getting all the most recent data about fire services. So how do we have a conversation about how those expansions get paid for? So those are a couple of questions that I think would be helpful before we move into establishing an ad hoc.
I appreciate that. And, the one main comment that I was going to make is for me, I understand the importance and the distinction between the MSRs and the SOIs, but they're consequential. And I think what we've seen, and I'll use St. Helena as an example, I think there's, we may see it again today, that there are perhaps particular landowners who might want to see some amendments, and that's perfect. That makes perfect sense. But what is our policy? What is the correct process? Is it something that is handled from a budgetary perspective through what each of the cities in the county contributes to LAFCO to be a functioning organization? Or are those requests really landowner driven? And we have, in fact, at our last meeting in February, we created and adopted a brand new fillable, really great application for SOI applications. And I want our staff to be fully informed from a clear policy perspective that comes from us as to where those requests should fall, because that muddies the water a little bit as far as I'm concerned. So for me, the biggest issue is not necessarily understanding the distinction between the two, and I think Commissioner Doring described it really well. They are related, but what should we be looking at when we consider any of these from the perspective of what we're doing for the agency or the district or the city or whatever it might be, versus what is really, quite honestly, a landowner-driven decision, which, again, that's one of our charges, and we should facilitate that, but there's a different process there. So, and I understand maybe waiting on the ad hoc, but if we could agree that that's a big part of what we want to do from a policy perspective, I don't see a reason to wait in forming it, because it's a big question, and it's important to the public, it's important to landowners, and it's important to all the districts and various cities that we serve. So I would lean towards trying to form it today, but maybe have a report back at the next meeting if there's on the history and how things have happened. But it's a big task, and I think it's an important one. Commissioner Gallagher.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to my colleagues for their comments. I feel like I could go either way if we want to set up an ad hoc or not. I'm happy to participate in that vote or not, depending on what everyone would like to do. It was interesting that I really started to think about this over the last week or so, looking at the agenda and looking at one of the SOI slash annexations requests coming up. And, Brendan and I went back and forth a little bit on email around the MSR's role in informing that. And, that brought up a lot of questions like, I went ahead and asked for the most current MSR for that particular city. And then like, oh, how old is this MSR and how do all these maps compare and how, and so really clearly understanding that intersection and what it is we're supposed to be really looking for in terms of what that MSR tells us, in terms of helping guide us around the SOI and the annexation piece. I feel like I need a lot more understanding of that. And so maybe having an ad hoc that can dive in a little bit and bring more of that information back to the commission is a great idea. Or we could wait if everyone would prefer. So I'm happy to do either in terms of action, but I do feel like it's really important to understand all of those elements and how they tie together. And I feel like I personally need a lot more education around that.
Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Cottrell.
So it's great to hear both those points, and I am happy to move forward with an ad hoc. I think we could do a kind of a both and, where we could ask the executive officer for some more information. And honestly, I appreciate that you're looking to the ad hoc for some policy recommendations, but I think we need to hear from you directly about what you think would be the right direction to go in as well. So I think we could, assign an ad hoc, task an ad hoc, but also ask the executive officer to report back at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that that could make sense. Commissioner Leary.
First of all, I'm pleased to see the commission is engaged in this and wanting to, learn more about MSRs and SOIs. I'm really pleased with that, and I could go either way. I think the idea of having an ad hoc was so the commission didn't have to wade through all of the stuff, and that it might be more efficient to have an ad hoc go through it. However, if the commission wants to be engaged in this process and learn more, then maybe it should be the whole commission that's engaged in this, and we set the time accordingly in our meetings and our commission meetings to go over it. So I can go either way because it seems it's important to all of us. And so what makes the most sense and most efficient. So,
Do our alternates have any comment on this item? Commissioner Khan.
There you go. So one thing that came up last meeting was the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that St. Helena should have had like about a 5-year timeline, and it was more like 8 to 10. And so with these current changes, it would seem that maybe it's more efficient, because it's already such a long time span, to pull those in and look at a bigger scale. If you're looking at, let's say, American Canyon, what you did just 3-4 years ago, that might be different. But one of the things that comes up often is, where's the funds to do that? And if you have people who have specific properties who are pushing that, then maybe they should put in some funds to say, look, normally we wouldn't have covered this. It might add to our consultants, et cetera. And so that seems to be one thing that often bites us, is we don't have the funds to do that. So that's just a thought. If there's something coming in up like an MSR and SOI, and somebody wants to change stuff right at that time frame where it's still flexible, let's see if we can do that, but ask them to chip in all. Just my thought off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, I think I'd like to bring it back. Commissioner Doring, was your light on? Did you have something? I don't want to.
So we have some issues that are sort of kind of floating around. I think there may be a disconnect between the staff capacity to actually get the policy goals achieved in a timely manner. I think that's one thing that we need to start looking at. And then I think we have to maybe ask the question of if we've had precedents in the past that are inconsistent with our policies, then why is that happening? Maybe the policy needs adjustment. So I'm open to any way to evaluate that, whether it does kind of feel, my gut is telling me that we probably all need to be involved in the policy changes and trying to figure out, when you have some of these reviews being delayed 8, 9, 10 years, that to me is there's a logistical capacity issue that we need to grapple with. Because even if we decide, okay, this is the policy, this is what we're going to do we have the ability to do it? That's really my concern. And then my other concern is be careful with relying just on precedent, because precedent may be inconsistent with a policy, and then you just get worse. It gets worse and worse if you keep following a precedent that really doesn't align with our policy. I'm okay either way with either a committee or sort of carving out some time to look at this as a whole committee. I'm probably more inclined to favor the latter.
I appreciate the discussion. I think what has resonated with me is sort of the both and, because I think there's a lot that's going to go into what may come before us. And if it's not June, then it could be August in terms of a more comprehensive evaluation, hearing capacity in terms of meeting this every 5 years. I'm also hearing a little bit better clarity on what constitutes our role as LAFCO in completing an MSR or an SOI for a district or a jurisdiction versus something that really should be through a private application. And I want to have our staff really have the support from this commission in policy so that they can help the public understand how to navigate that. And I would see an ad hoc as being really helpful in trying to address that issue. So when I say both and, I'm thinking, if not coming back in June, then coming back in August with a much more thorough presentation on this, but also setting up an ad hoc to help structure what that presentation is on. Those are the two items that I'm hearing, which is capacity and what we include and how to define with more clarity what we do for our districts and our cities, and what we do in our role to help facilitate a private application. So I know Commissioner Leary has, are you raising your hand to volunteer?
No, I'm not. I did want to comment, Chair Painter. I do want to comment and kind of echo what you said. As the newest member of this commission, I got a LAFCO 101. I did my homework and read all that, but we've never been presented as a body. And continuing education is a lifelong process. And within the details and the minutia of LAFCO, continuing education is the process. I'd be in favor of actually doing both and agreeing with Chair Painter here, because I think the good thing about ad hoc committees is that they do the work for the committee and bring it back to us so that we can make better and more informed decisions as a body. And that's why we do ad hoc work. And we have one that's stepping up and ready to do that, I think. And if we could pull that off and then come back, Brendan, with a full sort of like what we're doing, a public 101, if you will, in a way that takes some time that we have every even month to do something, I think it would be a worthy presentation. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Given that, do we have a second member who might be interested in serving? Do I want to do it?
I'm happy to nominate someone.
I would be happy to do it. This is important, and I think I don't want to make a commitment today that a presentation for our continuing ed is absolutely June. It may be June, it may be August, but it will be in one of the next two meetings. And we can get together and talk about the details of what's included. So maybe I'll look for a motion.
Before you make a motion, I would like to clarify what I'm putting on the table to ask of staff, which is I would love to understand more just about some of the nuts and bolts of how staff has proceeded in the past, in not just the initiating, but also when new things are asked to be added, what we've done. And Commissioner Doring, to your point, it's not about saying this sets precedent. It's just understanding how things have flowed. And I think it's also, I think it would be worth looking Brendan, to what your predecessor might have done and also other jurisdictions. And also another factor, I think, is how the communication works between our LAFCO staff and the jurisdictions. Is it as easy as picking up the phone to say, hey, you're expanding the scope? Or is it more challenging? Is it, and what would make sense there? Because I do want to come back to your point, Commissioner Doring, about how we also address through this process the problem of the extended period of time between MSRs.
All good points. Thank you.
I think if there was ever an argument, this was a very good argument to support that we need to be doing our MSRs on a 5-year basis. I mean, because we're the ones that are collecting this information, it impacts so much. And the argument today just proves that, well, our discussion proves that MSRs are very important. We need to get on and do them. I've been here a while through a number of MSRs, and some of it, one of the questions you asked was whether just picking up and calling an agency and getting the information. Some respond quickly, some take their time or don't have the information. I was thinking about this over the past week in terms of what we need to do in that light, because that information is well known. It is out there, and so when agencies lag, it may brings up a red flag. So I'd like to see when we do an MSR and definitely have a schedule when this information goes out, when they need to get it back to us, and
Yeah, well, we're
right.
kind of
I know. We're getting into the weeds. But I was thinking about this in relationship to an ad hoc committee or whatever. But those things that we need to be discussing, and then
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I think we have two big tasks in front of us, at least looking at the capacity and MSRs and looking at the process and how we coordinate both with districts and cities and with members of the public. If we can tackle that, that would be good. Still looking for a motion.
So let me attempt. I will make a motion that we establish an ad hoc committee to review the practice and policy existing and make recommendations for future policy, and also task the executive officer with a report back about what the practice has been and a set of recommendations based on that experience.
Second.
Okay, motion by
Did you want to
Commissioner
add
Cottrell.
names of the ad hoc?
Let's do it.
2 motions?
No, go. And I'll say Commissioner Painter and Commissioner Leary.
Okay, so that is a motion by
Still a second.
Cottrell and still a second by Commissioner Doring. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for that discussion. It's a big topic, and I think we'll be well served by approaching it this way. So thank you for that. We're going to now move to item 8 on the agenda. We have 3 public hearing items on our agenda, 8A, B, and C. We'll, of course, start with 8A, which is, in fact, the Napa Sanitation District Sphere of Influence update. Can we get a staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. This item is a public hearing to consider an update to the Napa Sanitation District Sphere of Influence. And I will note at the outset that this is a relatively straightforward SOI update in staff's view. This builds on the Commission's prior work, including the countywide water and wastewater MSR adopted in 2020. So we're not introducing new or complex policy issues, which we just talked about at length moments ago. Hopefully this won't be seen as too far down in the weeds. So the report is intentionally focused, highlighting the specific proposed changes from staff without re-presenting background that the Commission has already reviewed. And there are links to the older reports that are informing this report. Now, at a high level, this item recommends amending Napa Sanitation District Sphere to include 4 distinct study areas that are shown on the slide and listed in the staff report. And I will go into a little bit more detail momentarily on these. So these 4 areas were identified in coordination with district staff, and we do have district staff present today to hopefully answer any questions they are asked. These areas were identified based on logical service boundaries and existing conditions. That's the bottom line. Now, more specifically, several of these areas are already surrounded by the district's existing sphere and service area. So this, in a way, is a cleanup of edges and small pockets or islands. Also, in multiple cases, properties are already receiving service from the district through outside service agreements. In fact, all 4 study areas have one property receiving service already. So this would be an opportunity to align service areas with spheres and ultimately, down the road, jurisdictional boundary consistency as well. And I'll come back to that comment in a few moments. Also, there are opportunities here to transition public septic systems to public sewer service, which would have public health benefits. And also important to note that these areas are constrained by zoning and not eligible for subdivisions or much intensification. There's an exception or two where a lot split can occur, I believe. I know one in particular, a lot split is possible, but only if it had public sewer service. Now, a quick summary of the 4 areas. Here's a map showing their location and looking at the district as a whole as it is today. Hard to see, I know, but you can see the red highlights, and there's some text boxes and arrows pointing to the 4 study areas. You can see that not massive changes being proposed here. These are all areas that are already, as mentioned, surrounded by the existing sphere and boundary and service area in many cases. Now, there is one we'll get to that is, it's not surrounded, but I'll get to that one in a few moments. So very quickly, each of the 4 study areas have got a map and some basic information on the slides here. So the El Centro Avenue study area is comprised of 8 parcels totaling approximately 12.8 acres of unincorporated territory. So all of these areas are unincorporated Napa County. I'll get that out of the way. And there is an existing outside service agreement. So the district is already serving 1089 El Centro Avenue within this study area. And this is all zoned by the county for residential purposes. Next, we have the Monticello Road study area, which is a single parcel totaling approximately 4.2 acres in size and has an existing outside service agreement that was approved about 15 years ago by the commission. And that area is zoned for agriculture under the county's zoning rules. However, given the existing acre size of the property, there's no potential for further growth, even if we do ultimately grant a sphere amendment, and down the road there would also need to be annexation to follow. And I'll add a comment on that also momentarily. And so, as you can see, this area does not have the same feature of being surrounded by the existing boundary and sphere for the district. However, this is legally allowed. You can see there are other, what I'll call bubbles out there. You can see within the sphere of the district and also in the boundary. So the gray shading tells you the property is in the boundary of the district. So this would not set a precedent to create another bubble. You can see several of them already on this one map. The next study area is the Stonecrest Drive study area, comprised of 12 parcels totaling approximately 35.9 acres. There's an existing outside service agreement, which was approved by the commission, I want to say about 10 years ago, at 410 Stonecrest Drive. This is also zoned agricultural. However, the area is it's a residential neighborhood on the ground. Anyone who's driven down Stonecrest Drive would see that. These properties do not have any further development potential given existing zoning under the county. This would be what appears to be, to staff anyway, it would create a more logical boundary, and Napa Sanitation District staff has asserted that the district has the capacity and controls to serve these properties. Now, I will say there is one property in there that the district did not assure me could be feasibly served. However, if we were to eliminate just that one property, it would be quite difficult to even draw a sphere line on a map and determine that that one property has been excluded. So I've included it here. Again, it does not mean annexation is approved or services being extended. This would just be a sphere line that we control. Staff believes this is a logical, orderly extension of the district sphere. Now, the last study area, quickly, Imola Avenue study area. There are 3 total parcels that are included in the study area. One of them is an entire parcel, which a bit difficult to see on the map, but it looks like a square or a rectangle just south of where Penny Lane intersects with Imola Avenue. That is the one and only entire parcel in this study area. That represents a site that's been tapped for future development. It would be a housing site. The other portions of parcels here, there is a portion that is already served at 2097 Imola Avenue and belongs to the Camille Creek School. And this is what the district staff and commission staff agreed would be a logical, orderly extension in this area of the sphere, which would capture the existing outside service agreement, and also it would set up future annexation opportunity for the site that is expected to become a housing site in the future. And I do believe the district, correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe the district has already provided a will serve letter for that entire parcel, the future housing site, with a condition that the site must first go into the district sphere and be annexed into the boundary. So that will serve letter is essentially waiting on us to agree that we want to put the property into the sphere, and they would also need to annex afterwards. So now here is the recommendation slide, but before I get to that, I want to briefly connect all of this to your earlier action today, establishing the subcommittee to look into matters related to MSRs and spheres of influence. If the commission feels comfortable moving forward today, this item is ready for action as presented. If there are any questions about scope, timing, or broader policy considerations, those could be referred to the subcommittee for a more focused review and brought back with additional refinement. And now, at its core, this really is, in staff's view, a housekeeping update, which would align the sphere with existing conditions and create a clearer framework for future requests, such as annexations that would come before the commission. So this is just the sphere of influence. We're not approving any annexations. Those would still have to come to us as either a landowner or agency initiated or a registered voter initiated process. Also, just want to mention that this action is exempt from CEQA under the common sense exemption, given that we are not opening the door to any land use development or anything that could have an impact on the environment that would come with future annexation and development. So with that, the recommendation is to open the public hearing, take any testimony, close the hearing, and adopt the resolution included as attachment 1, which would update the district sphere to include the 4 study areas as presented. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. I think before we go to commissioner questions, I'd like to do our public comment, if that's okay with our commissioners, so I would like to open this to public comment if anyone would like to just approach the podium, and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Peter Menzel, and I live at 199 Cruiser Lane. I've been a Napa County resident for 43 years, a photojournalist for 56 years, and supporter of Skyline Wilderness Park since the day it opened, and that was 43 years ago. I want to begin by saying I support the SOI amendments for El Centro Avenue, Monticello Road, and Stonecrest Drive. Each of those areas is already substantially surrounded by NSD's existing service territory, with at least one property in each area already serviced and receiving NSD service, which you've mentioned. Those are logical boundary corrections, and I have no objection to any of them. My concern is limited to one item that doesn't seem that logical, and it's a little bit fuzzy to me looking at the map that was just shown with 23 acres, but I didn't specifically see the 5.26 acre parcel identified in today's staff report as being subject to a planned future residential project requiring Napa Sand sewer service. I read today's agenda as carefully as I could, and your own policy document states that inclusion in an SOI is not automatic approval of a future annexation, which is it's a planning tool for a 5-year horizon, and that's actually good news. I accept that. But I want to note for the record that this parcel is unlike the other 3, and that's the 5.26 acre parcel. It is not an existing residence seeking formal recognition. It's the proposed site of a large state-funded affordable housing development on land that was very recently part of Skyline Wilderness Park. I believe this commission should be aware of several facts about this specific project. No environmental review has been conducted. The developer has not been publicly identified. No plans or architectural renderings have been made available to the public. And today's staff report contains no engineering assessment of whether existing sewer infrastructure in the Amola Avenue corridor has the capacity to serve a development of this size. I'm not asking the commission to deny the Amola Avenue study area. What I am asking is whether the commission might consider separating it from the other 3 studies for further review, given how different its circumstances are. This parcel sits next to a school, which has been pointed out. It's adjacent to a busy rural arterial road and in a low-rise residential area. The removal of parkland for multi-story apartment buildings has not been fully examined in this public process. Our community supports affordable housing. I support affordable housing, and I'm sure most people do. The question is not whether to build, the question is where. Thank you. And being a layman reading this, I might be a little bit off base, but I would like to be informed of why I am on point by pointing out that the 4.26 acre part of Skyline Park, which has been used for camping and a lot of other events that actually fund most of the other part of the park, is being considered to be turned into a semi-high-rise apartment complex with lots of problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment?
Good afternoon. Lynn Wyman, 1081 Green Valley Road, Napa. I've been involved with Skyline Park since 1995. The park operates financially on its own, and taking this 5.26 acres away would financially hurt the park. And it's a gem of a park, if any of you go there. And it is not an appropriate place for multifamily development. I support affordable housing, and there are existing sites to the west of this one that would be suitable for this particular project. Thank you.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, my name is Jim Wall, and I'm the Vice President of PEP Housing.
And we are the developer of those 5.26 acres. I agree with you. That park is beautiful. It is a state-owned parcel that was awarded through that process by the governor. PEP Housing and Collective Objectives are the co-developer. We are, we are great stewards of wherever community we go into. 50 years in the business, 28 properties, from some of those are in Los Angeles, but 24 in Northern California. Low-income seniors and homeless veterans. If I put a star on a piece of property, would I put it there? Maybe, maybe not. But the state-owned property process was awarded to PEP Housing. We are going to provide 185 low-income, 30 to 60% average median income to large families, which could include seniors, farm workers, the teachers next door, all of the community. And Weija will be going into what the benefits of the project will bring to the county of Napa and the city of Napa. But I wanted you to have a face and the neighborhood to have a face. And we've never sold a piece of property in 50 years. We're here to be part of the community. What we're bringing is low-income housing. What we're delivering is a community. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Weija Song. I'm with Collective Operations, or CO. I just want to also add, we're working on the development of the Amola Avenue affordable housing site with PEP Housing. PEP Housing is a 501c3 nonprofit with close to 50 years of experience building and maintaining affordable homes here in California. The planned proposal, which was accepted by the state of California for 185 large family units. This means 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units that the county of Napa critically needs for many of the low-income families that call Napa County their home. When we say affordable, we mean truly affordable. These are 100% affordable to 30 to 60% area median income families. So that means for a family of 4, someone earning less than $90,000 a year for a family of 4. So these could serve the preschool teachers that work at Napa County Office of Education right next door. In addition, because this project has the support of the state and the county of Napa, as well as the city of Napa and Napa Valley Transportation, we're working on a combined effort to try and finance not only the affordable housing units, but infrastructure and also transportation improvements for the county. The proposed sphere of influence update will greatly enable this project to move forward. I don't think I need to say more about how critical we need affordable housing in the county of Napa. In addition, in terms of the infrastructure upgrades, not only would the project bring publicly funded, state-funded infrastructure improvements to the sanitary sewer that is required to serve these apartments, but it would also help improve the service to the Napa County Office of Education, which is right next door, the Department of State Hospitals, which is right next door, as well as many of the residential homes that are on the north side of Amola Avenue. So I hope the Commission today will support this resolution and support the sphere of influence update for Amola Avenue with Napa Sanitation. So thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? And do we have anyone on Zoom who's interested in public comment? No. Okay. Well, given that, I'll bring it back to the Commission. Anybody want to start?
I will go ahead and start. Let's see. This we know was going to be coming for us, and we have done some work on this already. I'm in support. I think it's really because of some of the conversation that's happened during public comment today to understand that while the County of Napa purchased Skyline Park, the 5 odd acres that is slated to be affordable housing is not owned by the county, that is owned by the state of California. That was not part of the sale. So that is technically not part of the park insofar as the parkland that is now owned by the County of Napa. I just think that's important for everyone to understand.
And I just want to add a couple of things before we move on. And you know, I know this is a lot of information, but I just want to remind the commission that we actually looked at the NSDSOI in August of 2025. And it was a very different report. And it only included the Monticello study area. And if you remember, for those of us who were here, we had quite a bit of public comment at that time, and including Supervisor Manfrey, who was going to hold a community meeting. And so it was a big deal and it was important. And that was less than a year ago. And now we're here today with a completely different slate of properties. So, you know, for me, I just really want to dig a little bit into how we got from there in August of 2025 to how we got here today. I think sort of arguably 3 of the recommended areas, you know, they're very specific and in my view, somewhat landowner driven in terms of interest. And maybe they're important, maybe they're not. But I do want to look at policy as to whether or not this is the time to include them in an SOI. We didn't have them in this report less than a year ago. So it sort of begs the question for me as to why they're here now, and is this timing? Are we under the gun in some way to do it? So there are those 3. The AMOLA piece has, of course, been a big topic of conversation. What I would just say is, you know, our purview is not to say, you know, how much we need housing and affordable housing in this community. LAFCO is very focused on process and how we set the stage, if you will. Because this is a big and complicated project that is going to include not only the county and the state, but also the city of Napa, and there's other services. So the question I would ask on that piece is now the time for us to actually look at an SOI amendment, or is there other work that should be happening? And I don't want to define what all that other work is. It's a lot. I don't want to stand in the way of that work to happen, but is this really the right first step for that big project that could bring a really significant amount of affordable housing? So with that, I'll turn to my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Cottrell?
Well, I think you've raised a lot of questions. I mean, I'd love to hear staff's response to your questions.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So, well, there were a lot of questions that I don't know if I can address them all head on in this moment, but there are great questions being asked about the timing considerations. There are some for certain study areas. I'll call them important local considerations, one of which is there's a deadline where Census Bureau information is updated, which could change the calculus on how certain areas are, whether or not they're eligible for certain processes, we'll say. An example would be a lot split. That is something that there are certain mechanisms where a lot split can occur by a property owner if the property is not designated for ag, I believe, and there's another piece of it, but this is where having county planning staff here would really help me out big time. But that is a consideration that has been raised within one of the study areas, is that the option for a landowner, they're looking at, well, what are their options?
Could you be clear as to which study area that is?
Yes, that is the El Centro Avenue study area, and I'll bring the map up again. So this property is It's north. It's hard to hear. Will this work? Not sure if this works. I don't see it. Well, it's 1089 El Centro Avenue. It's a somewhat larger parcel that is sitting on top of the new Vintage High School farm site, which we added to the Napa Sanitation District sphere and approved annexation for that property a couple of years ago. So this property in particular has an existing outside service agreement that's grandfathered under our statutes. LAFCO never approved it. When it was approved, it did not require LAFCO approval. The law has since changed, and now if they were to come to us now, they would need LAFCO approval to get an outside service agreement. That property owner is exploring options to potentially add another unit or two to the property, which is only possible if they are eventually on public sewer service. They would have to eliminate septic setbacks, the reserve areas for septic systems. That's an example of one of the down in the weeds issues we've encountered with these discussions. And the only option here is if that property owner is to ever be able to do what they would like to do, not saying we are opining on their interests here, but if they are ultimately successful in getting more units, those are housing units. We just heard about housing. Well, they're going to need the public sewer. So this is a way to help make that happen.
Before you leave this map, could you just describe to us when we look at this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 parcels that front El Centro going east to west. Which one is 1089?
It would be 3 parcels in which, 3 parcels to the east, the northeast from that boundary line to the left. So,
So the one that's not rectangular?
it's not. It's unfortunately this won't show up on there. It's not. It shows up on the wall, but not on the actual screen. So it's not rectangular. It's the small rectangular piece would be that is not the property. The very corner small rectangle, that's not it. It's the one that surrounds it.
Yeah, that's okay. And I'll just go ahead and ask the question on this one as a perfect example. Why wouldn't this be something that would be an applicant generated request for an SOI?
Great question, Chair Painter. That question was considered at length. I'll look to Napa Sanitation District staff who were present for some of these discussions, and we decided ultimately that this was an agreeable approach, given that we were also eliminating a pocket, it's not technically an island under state law, but we call them islands, areas that are surrounded on many sides by an existing agency boundary. And it looks like at least as far as logical, orderly boundaries on a map go, to staff, it looks like it fits, but it's not always that simple.
Okay, thank you.
I think I just want to follow up with your point that this is exactly what we are talking about, is that it's not at all clear how something's coming into this. And thank you for all the information you're sharing here at this meeting. I think it would have been great to have this all as part of the item itself, so we can make those decisions, because to me, just that one item, we are not the ultimate arbiters on what happens to that parcel, but if the motivation is to perhaps lot split or add more units, I mean, at some level we ask about growth inducing, and we might decide that is not, the overarching factor here, but it would be a factor that we wouldn't consider if we didn't know the backstory that you just shared. So there's not really a question there. It's more of an observation. I guess the other question I had was going back, and maybe we can actually ask the NSD team to come up here too. And thank you for referencing the fact that we had Monticello back in August. But again, I am concerned anytime we're creating islands and we're creating an island there. So I want to understand, and I know there is an existing outside service agreement. So how are we moving the ball forward here for the NSD and also the landowner? Those are a couple of questions I have.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we have Andrew Dameron here who may want to come up and just to add to that question as you're approaching the podium, what's wrong with just leaving it as an OSA? I guess is really what the question is.
Hello, everybody. Is this working? It's working? Okay. Andrew Dameron, General Manager, Napa Sanitation District. You have a lot of good questions. I'm not sure I have a lot of answers for you. We did work collaboratively with Brendan Freeman on this. So there's four different areas, as you've seen. The 4 different areas all have existing outside service agreements that some of them have been around for a while. So like the Office of Education sites from the 70s. The El Centro site also has been connected to Napa San for a long time. And then the 1166 Monticello Road, the island that you're referring to, Napa San has an unwritten policy that dates back to the 70s that allows a single family home to connect to the line. There's a large diameter sewer line that runs through those parcels, and that's why there's those pockets there. And so if a parcel in there has a failed septic system, we allow those to connect to that pipeline, even though that pipeline doesn't have capacity to serve additional growth. And it's like an unwritten policy. So with approval of LAFCO, outside service agreements are issued for single family homes along that alignment. And so one of the thoughts on that was, as a cleanup, is to amend the sphere to include that parcels because it's already served. It would still require annexation, which would require approval from Napa San on conditions of annexation, and also approval from LAFCO as well.
But before you leave that parcel, could you explain maybe in a different way, because I'm not quite understanding.
Sure.
Why not just leave it as an outside service agreement? I mean, if they're already served that parcel, what is the benefit of actually bringing them into the district?
There's no benefit to Napa San, so that's a question for LAFCO. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that the sewer line doesn't have capacity. Yeah, for growth.
Correct.
So you don't anticipate any other connections or on those sites? I mean, there are a number of lots there and people can build, right? Even if,
yeah. So that's a really good question. There's minimal available capacity. So I think what we're saying is a larger development. Like there was discussion at one point about building housing units at the corner of where the fire station is. There's a billboard on that site. If somebody was gonna build 20 units or 200 units on that site, there wouldn't be sufficient capacity for growth in the system that would discharge to that. But 1 or 2 single family homes along there, when there's been a precedent of that in the past, and what we're trying to do is solve an issue for failed septic systems along that alignment.
and then that made me think, would you be looking to increase the capacity on that sewer line?
No. Yeah, so that was part of the discussion when the last sphere study was proposed back in 2025, is it would be very expensive to expand the capacity of that line and would likely require participation of many property owners. So further development at Silverado Resort and/or connection of a bunch of new connections in, say, Monticello Park or Rose Drive, those locations. So if many parcels came together and the denominator of the equation becomes larger, then the cost per parcel becomes smaller. And that's the sort of project that would make expanding the capacity out there feasible. One single parcel or even the development of the resort itself is probably doesn't pencil.
Thank you.
And while we're on that topic, if I could ask one more question, the Imola parcel, is there any, and maybe you haven't even studied this because it's early, are there any significant infrastructure improvements needed to service the number of units that are projected there in terms of, increased line size or pump stations or expansion of sewer line?
Yeah, good question. So, part of our review with Brendan on these 4 areas was determining if providing sewer service was feasible. And feasible, it's a relative term, right? So most of the 3 of the 4 locations could easily be served with existing capacity that we have. Now, the developer of the Imola housing site is funding a study that's being performed by Napa Sanitation District to determine what improvements would be needed to the collection system to sufficiently provide sewer service to 185 new units. And so we have a draft study. We are reviewing the draft study with a consultant that we hired that was funded by the developer. And based on what we know today, it will be possible to provide sewer service to that with minimal changes to the existing collection system.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for the general manager?
Thank you for walking us through these parcels. One question on the Imola Avenue study area, because we know that the state portion here is just 5 acres, was there any consideration of just annexing those 5 acres, or help us understand? And again, I'm not sure where this sits, the thinking in because it is 3 parcels, making this sphere of influence apply to the entire portion as opposed to just the 5 acres where the development would be planned.
Yeah, maybe Brendan could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the plan was to draw, well, again, this is not my area of expertise. I'm not an expert at MSRs or SOIs. I'm a wastewater expert, but to draw the lines, draw straight lines. So the left portion, or the western portion of that pink square is the Office of Education site, and the eastern portion is the proposed housing development site. And neither one of those properties are within our sphere, which is the blue line, even though the Office of Education site is currently served through an outside service agreement.
I think that makes sense. So we're just saying, let's rather than draw something squiggly around, let's just capture this whole rectangle.
And it's not consistent with property lines. It would be consistent with approximate service locations. I don't think we have a development footprint yet. So we don't have plans. We don't know exactly where those lines would go. Those are approximate.
Got it. Thank you.
Is that right, Brendan? Okay.
Okay. Gotten a lot of information, and I know we're already at 3:30 and we have a couple of other items. So while we can certainly ask more questions on this, do any commissioners have anything they want to add in terms of potentially moving this forward?
I'm not sure about that, but moving it forward, but I do have a question about these outside service agreements. So you, in the course of the discussion, you've added bits and pieces of sort of the history of at a time there wasn't LAFCO oversight for certain agreements. But I guess my question is when those outside service agreements come to LAFCO, are there conditions of approval or anything that suggests that the next step would be to adjust the sphere of influence or anything. It's just it seems kind of bizarre. I don't know. I don't have enough. This is an area that I don't know enough about for sure. That's why I'm asking the questions.
Yeah.
Sort of haphazard in a way, and there's a history obviously before LAFCO was involved, but I don't know what LAFCO's oversight responsibilities are now, and would we have to go back to each one of those agreements? Go, wait a minute, what was going on there? What were the intentions? What was the future direction?
Well, there are two statutes that control this process. There's a general one that applies to any time an agency is providing a service outside their boundary. And then there's a very specific statute for fire protection services, which goes through a more complicated process. So there are exceptions in the statute, as Brendan alluded to. So agreements that were entered into prior to 2001, when you're swapping one service provider for another, certain water that's used for certain purposes. And those are all in the statute that the legislature had adopted. But if you're not within one of those exceptions, you do need LAFCO approval. And it depends on whether or not it's within your current sphere or outside of your sphere is the different approval levels. If it's in the sphere, it can be approved quite easily. But it must be done in anticipation of a future annexation, to your point. It doesn't give a timeline for that, but the statute does say, in order to approve this, it has to be, on the horizon or something that's being thought or contemplated. If it's outside the sphere of influence, you have to be doing it in response to a health and safety emergency to address something that's more urgent that can't wait for a sphere change to be done.
Thank you.
So just to follow up on the Monticello question, so because I think what I was wondering, and I think I'm hearing from a couple of colleagues, is this property is being served. There's not a benefit to NSD, and in moving forward here, we're creating an island, which we try not to do. So help me understand the factors that would support us moving forward with this decision today.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottrell. One basic task of LAFCO's is to endeavor to align services with boundaries. So that's one of our core purposes as an organization. Now, what does that really mean? What do we all get out of that? Well, that's another question. There may or may not be real tangible benefits there. One benefit might be for, if a property is in a boundary, well, there are tax rate area considerations. So in this case, I'm not sure that will benefit anybody. There are instances where, we'll just use an example. Sometimes an agency will own a property. Say the city of Napa owns a water tank site, and the property can be in. If you annex it into your city boundary, you no longer have to pay any property taxes on it. Now, that may not be a benefit here. I would look to Napa Sanitation District to better understand if getting into the boundary, does that actually change anything at all? And as far as their billing goes, property tax payments, there may not be a tangible difference there in this case. But again, one of our missions is really to ensure we're trying not to proliferate outside service agreements. And we do have policies that tell us that as part of the MSR process, we'll take a look at any existing outside services that the agencies are providing and at least attempt to provide an explanation. And I believe our water and wastewater MSR is the best example there, where we have maps and summary explanations of each agency, all of their outside services they provide that were covered in that report. So do we need to align services and boundaries? No, it's not possible. We have too many outside service agreements in Napa County to ever have that consistency between boundaries and services. The city of Napa's boundary would have to go up to St. Helena, and that's not happening. So these are great philosophical questions, and I hope that our subcommittee that was newly formed can help staff explore these and come back to the commission with more of a consistent approach. It sounds like the commission today has different preferences than the commission had a couple of years ago, and that's great. We have new faces that.
So I think in the spirit of trying to move this forward, I'm hearing that we have a couple of options. One of it, which is to move with the recommendation as proposed. A second option would be to continue the item, asking for certain information to come back. And another option is to not go with staff's recommendation and finalize, to Commissioner Leary's point, finalize this SOI update, which is a part of our charge, and do it with either no changes to the existing NSD map or a selection of the 4 that are in front of us, knowing that to anyone who has interest in any of these particular parcels, we have a really good application for a sphere of influence amendment update that can be filed with LAFCO, but whether it should be included as a part of this SOI update or not seems to be what we're struggling with. I think I will say my personal opinion is I'm not inclined to support any of the areas. I think based on what I saw in August of 2025, which only included Monticello and an explanation for that, I think we're at a point where I do want to finalize what NSD has for their SOI map, but encourage the landowners and anyone interested to continue that process in the appropriate manner. But that would, to me, accomplish trying to complete this process and not bring it back yet again, but also look at what is the right process for these other parcels moving forward.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate the point that these are, they're policy questions, but they're policy questions that we should have before us to, this is how we make our decisions, right? We take the facts and we apply the policy we have to it, and we weigh the policies. And so to me, I think we have on Monticello anyway, that just the competing policies of, thank you for sharing that point, right? We try not to proliferate outside service agreements, and we try not to create islands. I think that we don't create islands on the other 3. We do with with Monticello. So I like your point that we want to just move this forward altogether. I guess I would, on the other 3, I would ask one more time, NSD, if there's if these are the 3 that we're talking about aside from Monticello, are those a benefit? Like, who are we benefiting in moving that forward? Are those coming from the residents? Is that coming from, if that's the agency saying we can do our work better with these, then I think that would be helpful to hear.
Also, can I just say that in conjunction with that, I guess, we're asking who we're benefiting, but are we keeping anything from happening that needs to happen, in a timely fashion? If that's the case, we want to hear about that.
Okay, let me see. There was a question about 1166 Monticello. So we do, Napasan collects sewer service charges on the tax roll, and that property is not in our service boundary. So we do direct bill that property. So if it was in our service boundary, it would have to be, the sphere would have to be changed, and then it would have to annex in. If the property didn't annex in, it would have to be agency-initiated annexation from Napasan. It'd be a lot of necessary steps just to eliminate one direct bill. So I don't think there's no benefit to Napasan for including that in the service area or in the sphere. The other locations are there's 2 other locations that are development driven. And I don't think there's any reason why those couldn't proceed as a development application. There's no benefit to Napasan how the properties are included and services provided. It wouldn't matter to us either way. I mean, Napasan is a utility provider, and so if the city or the county or LAFCO says that sewer service should be provided to a property, then we'll find a way to provide that service. But we're not initiating this because it benefits Napasan in any way. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll come back to the commission and see if anyone's ready to formalize the next step.
And I'm not ready to formalize the next step. I have another question.
Okay.
The thing that is occurring to me right now is how we prioritize a limited resource, the resource being the ability to treat sewage. And I don't know how in-depth the LAFCO gets into that issue, but when we have to make decisions about whether something should be a resort or potentially an affordable housing unit, we don't really have that ability to do that at this point, right? But it is something, or do we? The question is, so how does NSD's capacity interrelate with our ability to make decisions, and should we not be aware of that just from a policymaking perspective? I mean, it's a little, maybe a kind of an ambiguous question, but I'm concerned about, it seems a little reactive and sort of not really well informed in terms of what do we want to achieve. And I know that's not our role. There are other jurisdictions that get into the level of detail about those issues, but what is our role, I guess, on that? And then I'll just stop right there.
Yeah. Well, I think the conversation's about to come full circle back to MSRs. So that document can and does make recommendations regarding spheres and other future changes of organization. And the things you analyze in that MSR include things like service capacity and facilities and opportunities for shared facilities and the like. And so that document could guide this type of decision, right, that you're making right now. And if that document were to say, they're at capacity, no more property should be added to this line, therefore there won't be any more sphere change or an annexations in the area, that would be the binding document for these types of decisions that are coming up. So it is something you consider. You don't do land use, obviously, but that document can reach those types of conclusions and then guide these decisions.
Commissioner Cottrell.
Yeah, so I think I hear we need to move forward. So I'm going to suggest that what I hear from my colleagues is that there's not a lot of motivation in moving forward. Not necessarily, I'm going to say, because there's strong opposition to any of these, but just that we have not been presented with the policy case of why we need to move forward with these. So as being included in the SOI. So at this point, I think I would go ahead and make a motion that we don't approve the amendments and move forward with the SOI.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Okay, the motion by Commissioner Cottrell and second by Commissioner Gallagher. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No opposed. Commissioner Doring, was that an aye? That's an aye. Okay. And Commissioner Leary, that was an aye. Okay. That was a good discussion. I think we learned a lot about the process. I think we added some clarity to the NSD SOI map moving forward so they know what they have. But I also just want to reiterate what I've already said, which is we do have an application for SOI amendments that can be generated and driven by a landowner. And if that's the appropriate process for whatever it is you're considering, I encourage you to take a look at that. We just updated it, fresh, hot off the press in February. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we are moving on to item 8B, which is a consideration of our proposed budget for fiscal year 26-27. Brendan, do you have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I did keep this brief. We do have a budget committee comprised of Commissioners Doring and Leary, both present today, who can assist with the information that's being shared as part of this item. And this item is a public hearing to consider a proposed budget for fiscal year 2026-27. At a very high level, this proposed budget is designed to do two things: maintain stability for our funding agencies while positioning the commission to take a more strategic and flexible approach to its MSR and SOI work moving forward. The proposed budget includes operating expenses of approximately $840,000. Operating revenues total approximately $784,000. That results in a planned shortfall of about $56,000, which would be covered by reserves. Importantly, agency contributions from our 5 cities and the county are proposed to remain flat for a third consecutive fiscal year. This is a deliberate policy choice to minimize the financial burden on the county and the 5 cities while still maintaining our core operations. This budget also intentionally draws down reserves to bring us closer to our policy target of maintaining reserves at 10% of operating expenses. Now, even with this drawdown, reserves would still remain well above that threshold. So that may be something the commission wants to discuss today. Now, from a strategic standpoint, this budget is really about setting the commission up to explore how we want to approach our MSR and SOI workload going forward. And as we discussed earlier today, these studies are becoming more complex and resource intensive. Staff on its own does not currently have the in-house capacity or specialized expertise to efficiently complete all MSRs and SOIs at the level the commission expects. So this budget is intentionally structured to preserve flexibility as we explore options, which may include continuing to use consultant firms to prepare MSRs, exploring tools and systems that could allow staff to complete more work in-house, or a hybrid approach that balances both. And this aligns directly with your earlier action today, establishing the subcommittee on MSRs and SOIs. That subcommittee will be well positioned to help explore some of these options with staff in more detail, and then bring back recommendations to the full commission. The budget committee also raised the idea of transitioning to 2-year budget cycles, which would better align with the multi-year nature of MSR and SOI planning. And that's something the commission can consider either now or part of a future cycle. So direction is welcome. And so with that, the recommendation is to open the public hearing, take testimony, close the hearing, adopt the proposed budget by resolution, and direct the budget committee to return with a final budget on June 1st. Now, I will point out the budget committee is typically tasked with preparing or considering a work program. We aren't in a position at the moment to present a new work program with work the full commission has not yet discussed. So that has not been part of this item, but there will be a work program presented at the June meeting. And so any ideas or suggestions the commission has now for what to include in that are also welcome. So happy to answer any questions. And again, the budget committee is present as well.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, do any of our members of the budget subcommittee have anything to add? No?
Well, I guess my initial impression is it's relatively a status quo budget. I don't see a whole lot of movement. We did have a lot of robust conversations about the need to use the budget document as an educational tool and to have more narrative, more written explanations that tie into what is the purpose of LAFCO and how this budget actually helps us achieve that purpose. So I think that I'll look forward to that. We do carry a really high reserve, and there was some discussion about whether there should be rebates back. We left it at status quo to maybe something to consider in the future. The 10% is, it still leaves us with a lot of cash on hand. There are a number of issues that we were looking at in terms of how the county allocates its services to us, how we pay for certain things, and to just make sure that we keep an eye on that and to make sure they're accurate when we get a bill from the county. So I don't see anything major here. I do think that the 2-year budget cycle will be very interesting. I think it will allow us to have more long-term planning. I think just the nature of LAFCO is, some of these studies and a lot of the work we do goes over a couple of years. The hardest part is trying to figure out the work plan and trying to get a handle of budgeting that is it's mind-numbing. And I don't know. I'm excited that maybe there are technological tools that will help us refine that and keep some of that in-house. But that's an area that we all struggle with, honestly, and we all have to tackle that. So those are my thoughts. You may have different thoughts or other thoughts, Mr. Leary.
No, I agree with everything you said and stated. I think there were some other things in the back of our minds, and one of the things is the commission here. Our last discussion, this is a new commission. It's a different commission than the previous commissions. And I was concerned about your views, and I want to bring information back to you, to this commission, to be able to discuss more of this, to help us plan. I feel we are about 4 months in the rear in terms of where we should be in terms of planning. I wish that we had a work plan that we could say, yes, this is how much it costs. We have 23 MSRs that we need to do to be able to figure out when, how much, and do that. We're not ready to do that yet. And so that's why we proposed a kind of status quo budget. And I kept in mind that, down the line, if we have to do budget adjustments, we can do that. So it's not necessary that we raise the budget, bring down our reserves in a more expedient manner. We still have time to be able to do that. There are a number of things that, in terms of looking at regarding to MSRs, whether in staff, consultant, or, how do we do these? So there are lots of questions, but I really feel that this new commission gets to be a part of that in making those decisions on how we're going to move forward.
Okay, thank you. It's not an entirely new commission.
Not entirely new, but it feels new. We may be old members.
Mr. Gallagher, do you have comments?
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that I think are worth noting. The budget is, as proposed, is decreased from last year's budget, but it is actually more than the estimated actual. So I think that's important to note. It's about $100,000 more than what has been estimated as our actual expenditures. So, I think that's just a different, it gives us a different way of looking at it. So we do anticipate spending more money next year than we are going to spend this year. In the narrative, it mentioned that consulting is trending down in terms of money spent, but it actually looks like consulting is budgeted to be higher than what we anticipate we will be spending by the end of this year. I'm assuming that has something to do with the anticipation of needing more consulting to do more work around MSRs and or special reports. So looking for a little bit of clarification there. We also have membership dues going from 2,300 up to 7,000. I'm assuming that is in anticipation of the possibility of renewing a Cal LAFCO membership, but we haven't actually decided that. We don't know what we're going to do there. So looking at that, I also agree, and it has been stated in the narrative too, that we have an oversupply of reserve, if you will. I think that deserves some review as well, because we can take some of those funds and be doing more work, i.e. maybe with consultants, not in-house, but nevertheless, we could be doing other things. In terms of a 2-year budget, we don't actually have a recommendation for a budget for 27-28, so I don't see how we could possibly move forward with any kind of 2-year right now. We'd have to save that for next time, because I think, we'd have to actually have staff come to us with a 2-year budget, proposed 2-year budget in order to move forward there. So just a couple of things that, I think maybe need some clarification, and others just food for thought.
Brendan, do you want to address those now?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Gallagher. So first, I'll tackle the comment pointing out, so budgeted expenses in the next fiscal year exceed the projected actual expenses in the current fiscal year. Big chunk of that is because Charlie was not hired until November 24th was her first day. So, but we had budgeted for the entire fiscal year for a full-time employee, also at a higher position level than there's a long story there I won't get into, but there was an oops that occurred, not at LAFCO staff level, won't name names, but we've been fortunate. We ended up with Charlie as our commission clerk, but we had budgeted for a separate classification. And so ultimately we're saving quite a bit of money that we expected to be spent on staff. So that's the main driver of the difference there. Then as far as, consulting services, we've put $100,000 there as a best guess of what it would cost. And I'll look to the budget committee if you want to add to this, if you have different recollection, but it's a best guess for how we could either hire consultants. Well, it's consulting services. So in one form or another, this would be spent on consultants. Now, is it the historical model of hiring a consultant through an RFP process and then they write the whole report for us and do the presentation? Or is there a hybrid model? That's what the subcommittee will hopefully help staff explore. And so the budget committee and staff believed $100,000 is appropriate to do quite a bit of work, a lot more than what you're used to seeing. So I know it's one of those situations you want to see it, you don't want to hear it, and that is coming. You're going to see better work flow moving forward. Now, as far as the membership dues going up, you're right that this difference is the gap between being a member or a non-member at Cal LAFCO. You're right, the decision has not been made yet. So the budget committee did discuss this, and there was real pushback on even including the money in the budget. But we ultimately agreed there is sufficient potential value to returning to Cal LAFCO. At least staff believes there's value. Now, the commission, I'm curious to have you all weigh in when the decision's finally made, but there's a lot of value there if you choose to accept it. So that's a commission preference at the end of the day. Now, the next item, reserves being above the policy target. We put this budget together with multiple goals in mind, and we can adjust them, certainly. So one of the goals being to get our MSR and SOI work done. We don't know what that will cost yet. That's why we put $100,000 in consulting services as our best guess for a starting point. Ultimately, that's a discussion that is still playing out, is how much of the work can we get done and how well can we do it and what will it cost? Now, we are dipping into reserves, about $56,000. Do we want to dip in more? That's something the commission can certainly weigh in on. This is just what the budget committee is recommending today. Now, of course, yes, the 2-year budget cycle wouldn't work if I don't have something to present to you today for the following fiscal year. So, but if that is something the commission wants to see next time we set up a budget committee, let's have that as one of our action items. So, hope I answered or addressed the questions. Let me know if I missed one.
Yeah, I think you did. The only comments that I'll make is, our budget is really all about staff and services. So I think it reflects that. Budgets are there to be amended and looked at periodically over time. I'm comfortable with the budget as proposed. I would be in favor of looking in the future at a 2-year budget, try to make things a little more lean and less burdensome on staff. I think it does make sense, not for this year, but for subsequent years. Maybe with that, if there's no further questions, I would look for a motion.
I just wanted to make a comment. I appreciate Commissioner Gallagher's points, just helping us track what the budget looks like as compared to actuals as opposed to budgeted last year. And I appreciate you moving forward. This is a draft and then it will go to public comment and we'll come back. I do, on the consulting piece in particular, understand we don't know exactly what's out there, but that's what this is a planning tool. So what I would ask staff to do is to spend some time thinking about what you think is possible and let's budget for that. And so we shouldn't have it just as a placeholder. It should be tied to an actual scope of work or, at least some assignments. So that's my comment there. And I also agree we have not had the conversation. Well, I mean, we have our current policy is that we are not members of LAFCO. So to me, that's the budget should reflect a current policy. If we decide to make an amendment later on, a policy amendment, then a change in the budget can flow from that. So those are my comments.
Okay.
So with that, I'm happy to make a motion to approve the draft budget to go to the next step. It's not approving the final.
Okay, and could you just reiterate with the changes that you outlined?
Sure. I just suggested that it's important to have some more detail and scope around the line item of consulting services so that it's tied to actual planned contracting, even though, at the highest level, but so that we can say it's for Project A and Project B and hopefully Project C. And then also making the point that our current policy is that we are not LAFCO members. I'm not stating that we should or should not be. I'm just saying that that's where we are at this moment. So I think the budget should reflect that current policy.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify it so that when it comes back, so that was a motion. I'm looking for a second. A motion by Commissioner Cottrell, second by Commissioner Leary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you for your patience, those of you who are really here for our last item, which is also a very, very important item, and I appreciate it, and that's the appointment of our public member for the term 2026 through 2030. I would like to take a minute and just sort of run through what I would propose as our process for looking at, we have 4 candidates and everybody, I'm assuming, has received application and has looked at those applications. What I would like to propose is that we allow each applicant 3 minutes. If you want to take a couple more, that's fine, but try to keep a short introduction as to who you are, your background, and what you're interested in terms of LAFCO. Then we as commissioners could have the opportunity to ask you a question or two. Every commissioner is not obligated to ask a question, but certainly you could. And then we do have a ballot procedure, a written ballot procedure. So what I'm going to do now before we get started is hand each voting member, which I'm sorry, Commissioner Leary, because you're actually an applicant. So we're going to do a little changing of the guard just so that it's fair. And Commissioner Leary is going to join the applicants and speak to us as an applicant. And the 4 of us, if everyone could take this form. This was made up just prior to the meeting, so it's kind of bare bones. Commissioner Cottrell, if you could pass one to Commissioner Doran. What you have in front of you is a ballot. We have 4 applications. What I would ask is that after we have an opportunity to hear from each applicant and ask the questions we want to ask, then we will use this ballot and put your names in order 1, 2, 3, 4, where 1 would be your first choice, 2 your second choice, 3 your third choice, 4 your fourth choice. Please put your name on the top of the ballot, because whatever it is that we decide is a public disclosure. So we will turn those ballots over to Brendan or our council or Stephanie. I'm not sure who's going to do the counting. And the candidate with the lowest number of points will be selected as our next at-large commissioner. Because what we'll do, just to repeat so everyone's clear, your first choice is number 1, second choice 2, third choice 3, fourth choice 4. Now I'm seeing, if my eyes don't, deceive me, 3 people in the audience. So do we have one of our applicants who is not here? Oh, he was here and he had to leave. Okay. Well, maybe Brendan, if you could just give us that 4th person, we'll go ahead and get started with the other 3 who are here. Sorry, I'm going back. And we all have your applications here. So I was just going to go in order of the applications. And the first application that I have on the list is Ken Leary. So Eve or David, well, or if are you comfortable at the podium, or would you rather sit? At the podium. Yeah. If you're comfortable there, that's fine.
Yes. Good afternoon, commissioners and members of the audience. My name is Kenneth Leary. I've served on LAFCO since 2016. But before we go there, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I was lucky early on in my life to have people who taught me the importance of community service. My parents, my teachers, and clergy, how important community service is. So early on in my life, I was a crossing guard. It's a Boy Scout. In high school, I was in Key Club and on the leadership team. When I became a Kiwanian in my working years, I became advisor to our high school Key Club. So I understand the importance of serving, and serving for service and not for anything other than being able to be a part of the community and contributing. I also served as a member of the Toro's Biosafety Committee to ensure that the Toro College in Vallejo and Mare Island does a lot of research on DNA, and they have a lot of harmful bacteria and things hanging out and around. And I was the public member there to make sure that they were doing things properly and to protect the public's interests in health. So let's get back to when I first started on LAFCO. 2016, I was on city council, and the city rep became available. At that time, I asked a lot about LAFCO, and a lot of people said, oh, LAFCO's this, LAFCO's that. But to me, once I got on, I saw that they didn't understand. So I immediately enrolled in 101 and some other courses to be able to come up to speed and understand LAFCO fully. I also got elected to the Cal LAFCO board as a public member, and served on the board until we decided that we are no longer going to be membership of Cal LAFCO. I've strived to be a good public member, meaning that I'm not here to represent the wine industry, the tourist industry, the environmentalists. I'm here to look out for the entire population and county of Napa. And it's not easy, but it is rewarding and warm to me that that's my focus, to be able to do that. And one of the main ways I think we do that is through our MSRs. And I've talked a lot about that during my time here. I pushed the wastewater, sewer MSR that we did, 5-6 years ago now? And there was a lot of pushback on that, but I kept pushing it because it's important. It's important that like I mentioned earlier, that people wake up in the morning and they turn on the faucet or they flush the toilet or they click on their lights, that they work. And we get to do that. We get to protect the public in that manner. And if that's all we did, that would be enough, but it's not. As our discussions about SOIs and all these things and everything else and annexations that we know eventually will lead to a change in our communities.
So 1 minute.
Okay. So in wrapping this up, it's been a pleasure to be able to serve on the LAFCO board, Napa LAFCO. I learned a lot. I hope I bring a lot. I try to bring the public's voice to this, and I will continue to do that if you select me once again for the position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Leary. Do commissioners have questions?
Yeah, I have a couple
Sure, go
questions. If you want, I'll start.
Okay.
Is the process that we ask the same question to each candidate, or how would that work? I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I don't think we discussed the question piece of this. It is
Okay.
common to have the similar questions of candidates as a matter of fairness. So that's something the commission would like to do. I think that makes sense.
At my age, you'll have to remind me what the question was I asked the first candidate. So
we'll keep track.
Thank you for your application, Mr. Leary. Mr. Leary, I'm wondering if you could expand a little bit more about the importance of the independence of the public member. Talk a little bit about that.
That's a good question, and it's a difficult question because there are a lot of pressures to vote a certain way, to stand on certain issues. I guess I would say for some, but for me, it has not been. I've been ridiculed by people in higher office. I've been told that they will never forget my vote. However, I put the public interest first. I'm not looking to be county supervisor. I'm not looking to be state senator. I stepped down. I did 2 4-year terms as city council member. I didn't see myself being a career politician. I could have run again, probably would have won, but I like to see things change, people change. Except with LAFCO, there is so much. I described it as an onion. You keep peeling back levels and levels, and the more you peel back, the more you learn, and then the more difficult these decisions make. And I always rely on my commissioners.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions?
Thank you.
No? Commissioner Casar.
I'm going to ask the same question of everyone, but you may have a little bit of a advantage because you've been here.
Oh, okay.
So just
sorry about
just
that.
to say that. But
Yeah.
anyway, this is something important to me because I think it's a critical part of what LAFCO does. Can you explain to me your understanding of our general plan designations of agricultural resource and agricultural watershed, and the zoning that comes underneath that of ag preserve and ag watershed and open space as they relate to the purpose of LAFCO?
All right. Well, one of the purposes of LAFCO, and some say it's the main purpose, is to preserve our ag land. That I forget was it Proposition C, and another that that created the Ag Preserve. And so one of our missions is to maintain and preserve the Ag Commission. Preserve. Now, watershed and Ag Preserve can be one and the same. However, our watershed areas encompass areas that are outside the county that water comes through. I also served on the WIC board commission for I think 4 or 5 years. And your last question was about the.
Sorry, I'm just basically trying to assess if your understanding of those general plan and zoning designations in relationship to what
LAFCO does.
Is charged with.
Right. And so in our general plans, these are stated, and LAFCO can utilize those to make its determinations. And it's, like I say, it's like an onion. In my years here, and I hate to go down this line, but the political pressure to do things outside of these and outside of our policies are great. And you can make a decision or a determination that can be overturned or changed or trying to influence your vote on it. So I look at everything that comes before us in a particular way to try to understand all those different scenarios and why it's before us. Like this, we were talking about, why are these things being brought before us? Because I've seen over my career here that things change, or we vote not based on our policies on these, but vote on the political pressure. And that's, as a public member, I'm glad I can say those kinds of things. And so those understandings and those things always change. And when I bring it up, well, that's politics. I like to take that's politics out of it and utilize our rules, our laws, because it makes it easier, so much easier to do our job.
Okay,
So,
thank you. I think
yeah.
we have one more question
All
for
right.
you.
Yeah, thank you. My question is that as a government agency, LAFCO has a set of policy charges. Commissioner Gallagher
Yes.
just mentioned a really important one, but I also think we have a process charge, which is to conduct a thoughtful and accessible review and make decisions in a thoughtful and accessible way and an efficient way. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we at LAFCO could be more thoughtful, accessible, but also efficient in our decision making.
Good question. So how can we better do our jobs in a more efficient manner? Well, one of those is education. I like to see more workshops. I like to see us get together and be able to discuss more. One of the things I find so challenging is to be behind a dais and trying to discuss and talk to your colleagues by turning sideways. I like to see us spend a little bit more time in workshops and planning. And I think if we planned more, we would be more efficient. I mentioned I felt we were 2 to 4 months behind where we should be right now. And I think we need to do a lot more planning and working together.
Great. Well, I'm going to kind of orchestrate things. I
Okay.
think I will let you off the hook with further questions.
All right.
And call our next applicant on my list, which is Jeffrey Crosswhite. Jeffrey, are you here? Okay, great. Thank you. So again, roughly 3 minutes or so, why,
Understood.
a little bit of your background,
Sure.
why you're interested, et cetera.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for having me. Jeff Crosswhite. I was inspired by Commissioner Leary's comments about public service. I was reminded how I got into my career and how I got here. So that was interesting. Thank you for those comments. So just qualifications wise, I am a licensed attorney. I've been for 13 years. I'm a former city attorney. And I currently practice land use, public agency work, CEQA litigation in the Sacramento region. So I don't really work in the Napa area. However, I am a resident down the street here in the city of Napa. I live there with my wife and daughter. She goes to Willow Elementary, and I actually drive down El Centro all the time. So that was an interesting component of this presentation today to learn about that. I'm also currently defending a LAFCO in Sacramento County over a annexation challenge there. So I have dealt with various LAFCO agencies across California, Santa Barbara, Sacramento, and Alameda in my practice. So I have experience advising city council, planning commission, and public hearings just like this. I used to sit over here and chime in when possible, and also be accessible to electeds or appointeds when questions came up. Let's see. So I'm originally born and raised in Marin County, just down the way, and I'm familiar with conflicts between open space and ag land and housing, and how that can affect a community and create conflicts of values. Now, as it happens, I consider myself, actually, believe it or not, the poor kid in Marin County, if you can believe that or not. So I grew up wondering, how did all these other folks have all these resources, and why is this area so beautiful, yet I feel like I'm without? So I went and I went to community college and College of Marin, and I was the first in my family to graduate college, and definitely the first in extended family to go to any sort of professional school. And I really studied what can benefit an individual and a community in the best way, and that's how I sort of became a land use nerd, and really discovered the power of just what local government can do in shaping our community and creating opportunities here. I think Marin. I moved to Portland, Oregon for a while for law school and started my career there, and then came back to California. I really did not want to be in the Bay Area for how competitive and how not connected those communities are. What Portland, Oregon had was an urban growth boundary. You might have heard of this. Very focused on smart growth, very intense, but they have the advantage of vertical growth, so they can do a lot more density than a place like Napa can. But those principles stuck with me. When I moved to Napa, what also stood out as very special was how you have, it's a more complicated question, because you're looking at folks who work in local industry that depends on open space ag land, who actually live here. And that's really special. I have so many friends who work in the wine industry down the street or in the hills. And I think that's so cool. I mean, people in Marin County, by contrast, there's no industry there. They all work remote or in San Francisco. So I find that to be a very special thing that is worth preserving. However, I am a renter here. I actually can't afford a house in Napa. So I'm very much living both worlds, and so sort of in one way a model member of this public that is serving. Pardon, I might be. Is that my alarm? Okay. So why do I want to do this? I'm a dad. I'm a full-time attorney. I'm a soccer coach. I'm trying to start up the co-ed parent softball league here in town again. So if you know anyone, let me know. Spread the word. This role would help me enhance my legal perspective and my interest in land use, but also as a resident, absolutely a direct investment in my community.
Well, I think, Jeffrey, maybe we'll move to questions
please.
if you're okay with that. Maybe in the spirit of trying to do things consistently, Paul, we'll do the same order.
Same question. Why do you think it's so important to have an independent public member on LAFCO? I may have not said it exactly that way, but yeah, the first time, but that's what I meant.
Well, obviously the voice of the public that has no other constituents to deal with. A lot of folks here have other constituencies they have to answer to as part of their 9 to 5. So a public member, their constituency is directly connected to the issues of LAFCO, and there's no other distractions in the way. But I think that the word independent is tricky, because a member of the public has their own interest. I'm a community man. I have a child in school, and I want kids like her and my neighbors to be happy and healthy here. So that all said, as a trained attorney and a former city attorney, I can't help but be an objective advisor. So I think that would be a very valuable aspect of my role.
And just for clarification, when I meant independent, I meant not connected to an agency. necessarily.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. That's a broad term. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Gallagher.
Yes. Okay. I will try to say this the same way. I am just asking you to describe your understanding of our general plan and zoning designations of agricultural resource, ag watershed, and the subsequent zoning of agricultural preserve and ag watershed and open space in relationship to the work of LAFCO.
Yeah, thank you. The objective is smart growth ultimately, and Napa has and by that I mean you ideally want to infill your construction population in the center of the metropolitan area and preserve public goods which are prime ag land or other ag land, as well as open space and environmental resources. That's just a conflict that most of the West Coast has embraced, but not a lot of other parts of the country. You'll be surprised to see they don't really care as much as we do. So it is a special thing that we should aim to preserve. But I can see in Napa in particular, like I sort of alluded to earlier, we have a unique set of problems or I guess challenges because the folks who live here in the metro area also work in the ag land area. So there's a unique challenge there that needs to be figured out. On the other hand, we're in a housing crisis and we need to find a solution to that so folks can continue to afford to live here.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cottrell.
Yeah, I like the challenge of recreating our question. So as a government agency, we have a policy charge, which Commissioner Gallagher just talked about, but we also have a process charge, which is to create a forum for thoughtful and accessible project review and decision making. But I would offer also it needs to be efficient. So what are your ideas on how LAFCO can be more efficient in its processes?
Was part of your question also to do with accessibility?
Yes, I did say yes, exactly.
Because that was the one I prepared the answer for.
Okay, sure. We'll hear that. We'll hear that. That's fair.
I'll say on processes, I am very impressed with how fast you folks are moving through these items and staying focused, and Chair coming back to the topic and to the questions. I'm not trying to blow smoke. Yes, I am trying to blow smoke, but honestly, I was a city attorney, and it would go from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. Every time, and so this is a very efficient group. So I don't think there's a lot of room there to improve. As far as accessibility goes, I liked Mr. Leary's comment about workshops. I think that's always an open forum for people to speak in. I think the notice and comment procedure sounds antiquated, but it is pretty efficient and gives everyone a chance to be heard. Invite them down just to know they have the opportunity. Now, actually getting that input can be overwhelming, but other than just a posting on the library, this sort of old school way of getting the public notice out, if you could get that invitation to comment out in other channels, that'd be great. Social media or by other means, spread the word. I think that would create more dialogue. Yeah.
Okay, and similar to Mr. Leary, I'm going to let you off the hook and appreciate your being here and sharing with us. So,
thank you.
Dalton, or you are Dalton? Okay, because I know one person's not here. So, Dalton, if you're prepared, why don't you come on up?
I don't know if I would say I'm prepared, but here we go. So I think I'm the least qualified person in this application pool, but I'm going to give it my shot. My name is Dalton Gu, and I am a resident and Napa-raised local. I am here. I've been here for a long time, and I love Napa. Napa is my community, and being here today, the journey that brought me here now is too long and boring to tell you. But one of the things that brought me into interest of organizations like this is Leadership Napa Valley. I graduated class 37 last year, and I'm still helping on the marketing committee. And they really helped me understand why Napa is so special, why I love Napa, and why it's unique to a lot of the world in the Bay Area. And so I'm here today to contribute, to grow, to learn. And my business is connected in a sense, but also not, in the sense that my full-time thing is residential real estate. And the people that I know aren't necessarily interested in what's happening with LAFCO, but it is very intriguing to me. It's very, very interesting. And so whether or not we move forward together, I plan to be here in the future. So I think compared to Commissioner Leary and the last gentleman that just spoke, I don't think my background necessarily supports the role as much as I would say my community does. I'm very invested. I recently started a group to support entrepreneurs and small business owners here. Just joined, became a part of the Napa News board. I'm also a volunteer advocate there, which I love being a part of. And I'm also a Yountville Chamber ambassador. So just to exemplify kind of the interest that I have and my love for Napa, I'm just looking for the right places to fit and to serve. And I'm very interested about LAFCO and what you do. And I appreciate your role and your mission.
Wonderful. Thank you. Really appreciate that. You're sharing about yourself. We'll do the same round, Commissioner.
Okay, your position is a little different than ours because it's a public member.
Mm-hmm.
And when I explained independent, you're not connected, you wouldn't be connected to any agency. So why do you think that is an important role that you would serve as an independent public member of LAFCO?
It makes sense to me. I've had the benefit of listening to two other good answers. Thank you. But it makes sense to me that there would be an independent public member to have a neutral party that represents the community and Napa as a whole and the Valley. And so I think it's as simple as that. Somebody that's plugged in and understands the wants and needs of the Valley.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gallagher.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dalton. So can you explain to me your understanding of our general plan and zoning designations around agriculture and essentially our ag preserve and that relationship to one of the core purposes of LAFCO?
My understanding of the general plan and the ag preserve is somewhat new. Really got exposed to it through Leadership Napa Valley. But my understanding of LAFCO's role with that is that it's integral and very important because Napa is what it is because of the preservation of its ag space and open space. It would not be what it is without that, and the world wouldn't want to be here, and a lot of the people that live here wouldn't want to be here. So it's my understanding that LAFCO protects that and also chooses, to steal your answer, smart growth, planned growth that flows with the plan and the community and the future.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Cottrell.
Dalton, thank you for being here. And it's great. I think we met at Leadership Napa Valley, and I think it's a testament to Leadership Napa Valley that it's creating a process that's bringing people into exactly this kinds of positions. So thank you for that. And my question is the process one. Commissioner Gallagher kind of laid out the policy, but I think as government agencies, we also have a process charge in how we do things, right? So that we should be thoughtful and accessible in our project review so the public can know what's going on. But also it's important to get through to make decisions in some kind of efficient manner. So you got to watch a long meeting today. What are your ideas about how LAFCO could be more efficient?
I don't assume to know exactly the processes of LAFCO and what could make it better. Today I'm here more as a student and a learner. I do like the points of making it more accessible. I think being a part of Leadership Napa Valley would be good. because it brings so much exposure to 30 community members every year that love this community and are the future of Napa. As far as the process goes, I'm not really sure what could improve upon that, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, absolutely fair answer. Thank you. And I will also let you off the
All
hook,
right,
and I
thank you.
appreciate your being here. So
Thank you
just
so
as a reminder, we have a form in front of us. There is a fourth applicant, Alexander Russ, who's still on the application list. I would encourage our voting members to read that application and put him as a part of your review, unless council would say otherwise, that somehow they're eliminated.
Nope.
Still an
I
applicant.
agree. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So if you could fill that out, and then we will provide it to either Charlie or Stephanie to total things up. Thank you. Don't forget to put your name on the top.
The first one is your top choice. Number one is your top
number
choice.
one
I just don't want to do it back.
Don't do it backwards. Number one is your first choice, 2, 3, 4. And while folks are turning the applications in, I just want to thank the applicants who are here. Obviously, Commissioner Leary kind of had to be here for the first few hours. You all didn't. So I appreciate you sitting through that and learning more about us. Whether you're selected or not selected, there's a lot of opportunity for involvement in this community, and I would absolutely encourage you to keep at it and look at ways to do it, because you all are fantastic assets. So with that, am I the only one that didn't turn in? Charlie, you can go ahead and announce once you have the totals, and then we will also need to announce how each member voted for the record. And if we have a tie, we need to vote again.
And I would just add one vote once it's tallied to actually make the appointment. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha. She's confirming my count. Okay.
Did you just write down a name of a person who didn't apply?
We're just adding up the numbers and lowest number, right? We're just confirming the way we count it.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So the lowest number would be the selection.
Okay.
Math. There's actual math that takes place. I got it. It's just like.
Just 4.
Oh, 4. Yeah.
So it could be a tie. They do more ballots.
Okay, the candidate with the lowest number is Jeffrey Crosswhite. The second lowest number is Ken Leary, then Dalton Gu, and then Alex Russ. And then you'd like me to list who voted in what order? Chris?
Yeah, if you could give the total for what they got and then how each commissioner voted.
Sure, yeah. Ken Leary received 8 votes. Jeffrey Crosswhite received 5. Dalton Gu received 11. Alex Russ received 16. So Ann Cottrell voted Jeffrey Crosswhite is number 1. Ken Leary is number 2. Dalton Gu is number 3. Alex Russ is number 4. Commissioner Gallagher voted Jeffrey Crosswhite number 1. Ken Leary number 2. Dalton Gu number 3. Alexander Russ number 4. Commissioner Doring voted Jeffrey Crosswhite number 1, Dalton Gu number 2, Ken Leary number 3, Alexander Russ number 4, and Chair Painter voted Ken Leary number 1, Jeffrey Crosswhite number 2, Dalton Gu number 3, and Alexander Russ number 4.
That worked fabulously. Thank you very much. And I just want to say thank you to all. First of all, congratulations to Jeffrey Crosswhite, and certainly a huge thank you to Commissioner Leary, who has given many, many years of service to LAFCO, as well as to the City of American Canyon, as well as to many, many other organizations. I know you're not going to stop. So keep at it. With that, do we need a motion? We do need a motion. Commissioner Doring?
Council, what is the motion? And I'll move it.
A motion to appoint Jeff
Crosswhite
as the public member.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. A motion by Commissioner Doring, second by Commissioner Cottrell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That starts beginning May 4th, 2026. So we'll, on our future agenda, look at those changes and really look forward to that. We're going to move now to item 9 on our agenda, which is the executive officer report. Yeah, and again, thank you to Dalton, to Jeffrey, to Commissioner Leary. This, I hope, was a good process. You shared really solid applications. And like I've already said, there's lots of ways to be involved in this community. So I would, and through Leadership Napa Valley, which several of us are graduates of, I know you can learn about where to do that. And please do, because it's really important. Thank you. Yes, please. Okay. Executive officers report.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Do we want to hear it? Do we have time? Look into the commission. I'll just speed
If
through
you can be brief, yeah.
as fast as possible. So staff is working on our social media presence, and there should be something to share soon, I hope. That is, I believe I have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with someone to assist with that. We really do value the public's engagement. Obviously, we just went through a process here where we had ultimately drawn in members of the public who are interested in service and learning more about LAFCO. So we want to keep doing that. So then the next item, we've got our newest employee, commission clerk, Charlie Gray, will represent Napa LAFCO next month at the Cal LAFCO staff workshop. So even though we're not members with Cal LAFCO, we can still attend their conferences and workshops. We do pay a higher rate. There is one of the considerations. This is a hugely beneficial opportunity for a new staff member. I remember my first trip was to Pismo Beach, just like yours will be. Mine was in 2009, so dating myself a bit. Speaking of Cal LAFCO, our decision to become a member or not will be discussed as part of that'll be on the next agenda, either as part of the budget item or separate but related. Also on the topic of statewide associations, there is another one where we are currently a member. So that is the California Special Districts Association, or CSDA for short. At our next meeting, I have agreement from their field rep, Colleen Haley, who does the Northern California region. She will come speak to our commission, give a brief presentation about what they do. That will be another one where we can consider if we want to renew our membership for the next fiscal year. Then in terms of big picture thinking and envisioning what the next few years of our work really looks like, I would like the commission to start thinking about strategic planning sooner than later. That would help a great deal, as we clearly have a lot of wonderful questions being asked at these meetings, and we can go very deep into the weeds on those. I feel a strategic planning workshop or retreat would be an appropriate setting where we can flesh out what our priorities are and our goals. That may be something I'll speak with our chair and we'll figure out an appropriate way to bring that forward when the time is right. Finally, it's been a while since my last closed session performance evaluation was conducted, and we will likely have that on the next agenda. I'll work closely with our chair to ensure scheduling of items on meetings makes the most sense. So that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 10 is commissioner comments and any requests for future agenda items. Commissioner Gallagher.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you so much to everyone who applied for the public member slot. It's just great to see people come forward, and regardless of what you've done before, what your background is, just the willingness to be of service in the community and do more, because everybody has very busy lives, but to want to serve is really, really special, and it's not easy to put yourself out there. So thank you for doing that, and especially to Alex, who maybe will hear this but isn't here. It's really important that people are involved. So thank you for putting yourself out. And also to say to Commissioner Leary, big, huge thank you, because you have done so much for LAFCO. You've been involved at the state level, and you've really put your heart into this and have contributed so much. And I am very grateful for that. And I'm sure that the whole commission is as well. So just wanted to make those comments.
Yeah, and I'll just say ditto to that. We had a little bit the abundance of riches. And so I feel really, really fortunate that we will be moving forward, and appreciate your service as well. Any other comments or future agenda items?
I'm going to pile on here. So again, thank you to all the applicants and Alex. It was a long meeting, and so I understand that. And I want to say a special thank you to Commissioner Leary. I feel like I've learned so much from you. I've spent time with you on ad hoc committees here, and I always appreciate your calm and thoughtful demeanor. And I look forward to where else you're going to be a leader. Thanks.
Okay. Well, with that, then I will adjourn to the next meeting, which is Monday, June 1st, here again, 2 p.m.